Hey everybody, just once again I want to thank you for taking some time out watching this video. This one, I think even more so than pitching, I think is really going to help a lot of you if you really want to work with your sons, during some off time and really help them improve. And it really kind of gives you a good basis as to what do you need to look for in your son's swing. So this is going to be a great video to kind of go along with the drill work that's also posted on the website that you can take a look at and kind of go side by side and kind of compare, well, what does a good swing look like and what is your son doing? So in this video we're going to be looking at three different hitters. We're going to be looking at Barry Bonds, Miguel Cabrera, and Albert Pujols. So obviously Cabrera and Pujols being probably the two top hitters in the game today, and Barry Bonds is, arguably the greatest hitter of all time. So let's take a look. Let's look at Barry Bonds first. So we're gonna look at Barry Bonds first, and as you can see, kind of one of the common themes that we're gonna look at, just as we did with pitching, is as far as the startup goes. We're not really too concerned about the startup. So if you look at Barry Bonds, he's very, very close. But the point that we're going to start looking at is right here. And right here is when Bonds kind of really puts his foot down. And that's the first main point that we're going to look at, is the idea of this front foot landing. And if you notice in all great hitters, when their front foot goes down, the ball of their foot goes down before their heel. And that's kind of the first point that we're going to look at, is the ball of our foot going down. Because once that heel goes down, that's when the swing begins. Alright, so in this Bonds video, we're just going to kind of go through, we're going to look at some basic key points that I want us to look at, and then in the next couple sessions, we're going to look at kind of getting rid of some common myths that we talk about in hitting. So we go through, this is a great clip because here's Bonds and his landing point. And again, we talked about the idea of torque in the pitching video. And again, the idea of torque is kind of two forces moving against each other. So where you can see Bonds' lower half, his hips and his legs going forward, all that body weight going forward, his shoulders are still back, and that creates massive tension right in this core area right here. And that's where Bonds gets all of his power from. So you look at kind of little hitters and you say to yourself, well, how do they get all this power? Well, it's because the torque that they create by keeping this top half closed is so incredible. So let's take a look at it, going through clip by clip. And we can see that Bonds' foot, his heel is now landed. And once that lands, the only thing that our back foot is going to be used for is for getting our back heel up so we can generate all of our power going forward. Okay, you can see that Bonds' back heel is up, and once his back heel is up, that allows his back leg, watch his back leg go, and his back leg in just two clips goes from there, and it just rips through. And that's where he gets all that power from, is that back leg kind of ripping through. Alright, so we go through, we look, what else are we looking for here? Okay, we still see his shoulders are kind of closed off, where his hips are totally wide open now. And what's going to happen? Alright, lower body wise, we see tremendous torque. Again, how do we talk about it when we looked at pitching? We see this idea of kind of backside thunder with his back leg tilted almost at a 90-degree angle, and his front half, his front side, his front leg at the point of contact is essentially entirely straight, and that allows him to rotate along this axis right here, which is again where he generates all his power from with this torque. So again, we kind of talked about in the pitching video, kind of how I like to call it the tetherball effect, how everything kind of rotates along that front side, or as I call it, the tetherball pole. Alright, so that's just kind of a great video going through. And we can take a look at it in slow motion, because the clip's only 12 seconds long. We see here, heels up, back heel, and he just rips through. Alright, it's an incredible swing. You really have to break it down clip by clip so you can get a good look at it. Alright, next clip we're going to look at. is Miguel Cabrera. Now with Cabrera and Pujols, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look at debunking some common myths that we see. And probably the first two clips, I'll just let this play through. We're going to look at Cabrera's swing. Obviously, Miguel Cabrera just won the Triple Crown, which is arguably the most difficult feat in sports to accomplish. But he's an incredible hitter. So let's go through. Let's look at this. All right, so same thing. We're not really worried about the setup. All we're worried about is that point right there. So we see the heel up. Okay, we see heel up. So once that heel goes down, let me try to get to it in the next clip. Once that heel goes down, that allows this back heel to go up, which allows Cabrera to rip through. All right, now some things that we really want to take a look at. The kind of the first thing that we talk about is the idea of not dipping your shoulder. Okay, people always say, don't dip your shoulder, don't dip your shoulder. Well, watch what happens with Cabrera. Okay, watch his shoulder. Well, let's back it up a little bit. So here's his shoulder. So his shoulder is right about there. Okay, so his shoulder is right there. I wish I didn't have to move my mouse. But you guys can see in slow motion how his shoulder dips. His shoulder totally dips. Boom. I mean, that's kind of a great look at it. And we don't refer to it as dipping your shoulder. We refer to it as a shoulder tilt. And that's what happens. We have a shoulder tilt. All right. So we see Cabrera. We'll go through with the shoulder tilt. All right. That's kind of the big one that I want to look at. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a different view. We're looking at it from his back. This next view of Pujols is going to be a lot better, but you kind of get a great look at his shoulder and how much it dips and how it has to dip. And we're going to look at the next reason. We're going to look at why it has to dip. But the last thing before we get to it that we want to look at that's on that kind of common myth of hitting sheet is the idea of squishing the bug. And you can get a great glimpse at it with Cabrera here. If you look at Cabrera's back foot, whenever people teach squishing the bug, they teach, I mean, think about it. Mimic squishing a bug right now, how you're squishing it with kind of the balls of your feet. And you're keeping your weight on that foot. Well, if you look at Cabrera's back foot right now, his foot is off the ground right now. And all that back foot does, and we talked about this a little bit, but all that back foot does is we just need it to get up so the rest of our body can rip through. All right, so when we look at hitting, we look at it very similar to pitching as what I like to call a bottom-up effect. Because what happens is a bottom-up effect is we look at the knee going through, and once the knee goes through, the hips can go through. And once the hips can go through, then the shoulders can go through. But if you look at it, there's no squishing the bug in Miguel Cabrera's swing. That thing is straight up and down. And the reason it needs to be straight up and down is to create that 90-degree effect with our back leg, which in turn allows us to have a totally straight front side. All right, so now let's look at Pujols. All right, great swing. Again, going through with it. Okay, we can see kind of there's some background noise from this YouTube video. All right, so we can see shoulder tilt again. All right, one of the most important things that we look for with our kids when they hit is the idea of what's called being connected. And what we mean by being connected is we want to take our back elbow, and you can see this with Pujols. We want to take our back elbow and make sure that it stays connected to our rib cage. Because what that does, we talked about kind of that whipping effect. We want to make sure that our back elbow stays connected to our body so that when our body goes through, it allows us to use that energy that we have with our body running through to whip our bat through. All right, so we can see Pujols kind of staying connected, staying connected, staying connected. All right, now the next thing we want to look at is the idea of swinging downward. Okay, we want to swing downward. False. When we think about it, when a ball is being thrown from the pitcher's mound, the ball is being thrown at a downward angle. Okay, so we talked about kind of equal and opposite. So if that ball is going down, we need our swing to be slightly up. Okay, so we need our swing to be slightly up. So how does that work? That works, again, with the shoulder tilt. With the shoulder tilt, and then you can see with Pujols, this is one of the things on the paper that I said I would show you guys. But this is what's known as palm up, palm down. Okay, so if you take your palms and you put one up and one down, that's how we need to come through with the strike zone when we're through the zone. Because what this allows us to do is this allows us to have our bat in a plane that is much more aligned with the ball than we would if our shoulder stayed up and we took our hands to the ball and we're kind of chopping down. Okay? So we see here how long his bat is in the zone. There's your point of contact. Again, foot is barely on the ground, 90-degree angle with our back leg, straight front side, and that allows us to kind of rip through. Alright, so I'll kind of let that finish out. Kind of exactly what we're looking for here. I think this is a home run derby from a year or two ago. Alright, so let's go through, and we're going to look at this again. Alright, so again, what do we have? We got backside thunder, kind of coming through from that back heel, being let up. And so a lot of people say, well, if your shoulder tilts, then don't you have an uppercut swing? Well, yeah, you do have an uppercut swing. But having a slightly uppercut swing does not lead to popping the ball up. What leads to popping the ball up is not the shoulder tilt. Rather, it's your hands not being palm up and palm down. If your hands are straight palm up, palm down, then you're going to square that baseball up kind of like Pujols does right here. Boom, palm up, palm down, that ball squared up. But if his hands were tilted, that's when the pop-up comes into play, because that's when the bat kind of leaves that swing plane that we really want to see. All right, so that's pretty much all I've got. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something from it. But again, 3 top hitters, and it just gets frustrating because when you go and you talk to a lot of people who are coaches, they don't really teach what they see, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to we've done a lot of research and a lot of analysis as to how do people actually hit best, and these are the key components to making sure that we hit best. So again, it's on the bottom of the hitting myths sheet as to what we look for, and a lot of the exact same things that we look for when we hit, they transcend very easily to things we look for when we pitch. So hitting and pitching are pretty similar as far as the mechanics and the energy go. So, but again, it's very important that you guys kind of go through, try to work with your sons on these things, incorporate the drills at home that we are putting up online for you. And if we do that, I can guarantee that your sons are going to be pretty successful this year. All right, so once again, thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you got something out of it, and hopefully you can kind of take that away and work with your sons on that. So I hope you have a good day, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email.